Ever wonder what lies beneath the waves? Lost to time but still holding secrets. Imagine drifting off to the calming tales of forgotten shipwrecks, a historical lullaby guiding you to deep, peaceful sleep. Join us as we explore the submerged wonders of the past, transforming history into tranquility. Welcome, dear traveler, to Go to Sleep Historian. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your quiet moments here tonight. If you haven't subscribed yet, I kindly invite you to do so. It helps this peaceful community grow and ensures you never miss another calming journey into the past. Now, settle in, relax your shoulders, and let the gentle rhythm of the ocean carry you. Your sleep time story begins. Take a moment, wherever you are, to settle into stillness. Let the world grow a little quieter around you, like a lantern gently dimming at the edge of an old harbor. This is the hour when the day releases its last breath, and the night, softened and patient, reaches out its hand. Tonight, we begin a slow and soothing journey, one that drifts beneath the waves into the quiet cradle of the sea, where history doesn't roar or clash, but rests in deep, peaceful slumber. Imagine yourself standing at the shoreline of a sleeping ocean. The moon hangs above like a polished silver coin, its light spilling softly across the surface of the water. Each ripple glimmers, as though the sea is whispering its secrets in tiny shimmering breaths. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of salt and ancient stories. Even the wind moves gently, careful not to disturb the calm. With a single slow inhale, you step forward not into the chill of a wave, but into a warm, welcoming descent. Picture the water rising around you without resistance, like silk wrapping around the body with tender intention. The surface lifts and falls with the gentlest rhythm, nudging you to relax your shoulders, soften your gaze, and let go of the thoughts you carried here. You begin to drift downward, not sinking, but floating as though the ocean itself has chosen to carry you. Above, the sky remains visible for a moment longer before bending away into a watercolor blur. The world of noise and urgency fades until it feels more like memory than place. Down here, there is no hurry. Down here, the pace of life slows to the steady pulse of underwater currents. As your descent continues, the water grows calmer, thicker with quiet, holding the world around you in a suspended hush. The songs of the surface slip away, replaced by a serene, velvety stillness. It is not emptiness, it is fullness, but of a different kind. A fullness of rest, of time layered over time, of stories long forgotten by the sunlit world. The colors shifted. Above, the sea was blue. Down here, it deepens into a tranquil gradient, from sapphire to midnight. But these shadows are not frightening, they're comforting, like the dim glow of a room prepared for sleep. The light that does reach these depths becomes soft and drowsy, pooling in slow-moving shapes that drift like wandering stars. You feel weightless, suspended in a world that asks nothing of you. The ocean moves slowly around you, like a vast, patient guardian of dreams. And as you drift deeper still, you begin to sense something subtle beneath the calmness. The presence of memory. The ocean remembers everything. Every ship that has crossed its surface, every storm that has carved new paths in its heart, every echo of laughter, fear, triumph, and loss. It holds them gently, like treasures in a private collection. But the stories it keeps most peacefully are those that rest quietly on its floor. Shipwrecks that once traveled proudly through the world above, and now slumber in undisturbed stillness. It's toward these resting places that the ocean guides you. There is no sudden shift, no startling reveal, only a feeling soft as a whisper that you are nearing a realm where time has slowed to the point of stillness. The water thickens with history. The pressure of the deep becomes a calming, steady embrace, wrapping around you like the weight of a warm blanket. You are drifting closer to the quiet heart of the sea. Ahead of you, faint shapes begin to materialize through the blue. Their outlines are softened by distance, and softened even more by the patient touch of time. They don't rise abruptly or loom unexpectedly. Instead, they appear slowly, like memories returning after years of peaceful sleep. The ocean floor spreads out beneath you, a vast, gentle expanse of sand and silt, illuminated by the faintest glow from above. It resembles a desert at twilight, untouched and infinite. But unlike a desert, this place is alive not with noise, but with presence. You can almost feel the hum of age-old stories drifting in the still water. As you float closer, you begin to sense the silhouettes of ships resting across this underwater landscape. Some lie angled like tired giants who laid themselves down to sleep. Others sit upright, as though still standing watch over secrets they carried across the waves. Their wooden or steel frames no longer shout their purpose. Instead, they murmur their histories in soft, rhythmic patterns as the currents flow through their empty passageways. These wrecks are not scenes of disaster here. Not anymore. The sea has softened them, rounded their edges, covered them in life, wrapped them in silence. They have become part of the ocean's natural rhythm, like boulders in a forest stream or mountains beneath drifting clouds. They are peaceful, they are quiet, they are home to the deep. And as you drift among them, you feel their presence not as ghosts, but as gentle storytellers. Each ship carries a memory, but it shares it slowly, calmly, in whispers that match the rhythm of your own breath. A plank creaks softly as the current passes through it, sounding like an old floorboard in a cozy house. A piece of railing emits a faint shimmer as the moonlight finds it, like a candle flickering on a windowsill. Tiny fish move in graceful arcs, their bodies illuminating the water in soft silver strokes. Everything here flows in harmony, in silence, in endless calm. You take in the scene, this underwater archive of history, and realize that nothing is demanding your attention. The sea does not insist that you listen. The wrecks do not insist that you understand them. You are simply welcome to be here, in their presence, drifting as lightly as a falling feather. And so, you allow yourself to float a little closer to one of the resting ships. Its beams and frames rise like the ribs of a great sleeping beast, but its posture is gentle, peaceful. Algae drift in soft green curtains, moving like slow-motion breaths. Sand has settled on its surfaces like a dusting of snow. Nature has transformed it into something quiet and tender, a sculpture shaped by time and patience. As you circle slowly around it, you feel something shift inside you, not a thought, not a realization, but a sensation of deep calm. The ocean has a way of taking what weighs heavily on the heart and dispersing it into the water, dissolving it grain by grain. You feel the tension in your muscles release a little more. Your breathing deepens. The world above grows distant. This chapter of your journey, this soft descent, reminds you that the ocean's depths are not a place of fear, but a sanctuary for stories that once moved across the world with purpose and pride. Now, they rest in quiet dignity, and when you visit them, they offer their stillness freely. So you drift on, letting the ocean's slow embrace guide you toward the next story, the next gentle whisper hidden in the deep. Ahead, a new shape waits in the water, a legend softened by time. The deeper you drift into the world beneath the waves, the more the ocean reveals its true nature, not as a force of unpredictability or power, but as a basque patient cradle. Down here, every movement feels intentional, unhurried, and kind. The water holds you the way a quiet room holds a candle flame, gently, protectively, and with an understanding that you have come seeking rest. As you continue your descent through the blue twilight, you begin to notice the way the ocean wraps around you, almost like a warm, familiar shawl. Despite the great depth, there's no bite of cold, no pressure that weighs harshly on your body. Instead, the water feels softened, as though it has been warmed by centuries of memory suspended within it. It moves in slow, graceful ribbons around your arms and legs, guiding you gently deeper into its embrace. With every passing moment, your senses adjust more fully to this new world. The quiet becomes something you can almost feel on your skin, a soothing texture, like silk or fine mist. The light grows dimmer, but not darker. Rather, it becomes warmer, richer, settling into a soft, blue haze that seems to glow from within the water itself. If the world above is ruled by noise and motion, the world down here is shaped by stillness and patience. The currents move, but slowly, like someone turning a page in an old book, so as not to disturb the story resting on it. Shadows drift, but not with speed, more like thoughts lingering in the mind long after a peaceful dream. Even the sand below shifts, as though it has all the time in the world to find its perfect resting place. And the ocean welcomes you deeper, always deeper. Ahead of you, Thin streams of light fall through the water like gentle curtains. They shimmer in long, wavering lines, bending with the movement of the currents. These beams catch tiny particles in the water grinds of sun fragments of ancient shells. Specks of drifting plankton end make them glow like dust motes floating in a sunlit room. The effect is hypnotic, calming, as though the ocean is inviting you to drift into its rhythm. You let your breath slow. Inhales soft and steady. Exhales lower still. The rise and fall of your chest begins to match the sway of the water around you, until it feels like you and the ocean share the same quiet pulse. It's a strange and beautiful sensation, as though you're no longer an observer in this world but a part of it, mobbing weeded, breathing with it. As you drift, your mind begins to soften as well. Thoughts that once buzzed loudly now feel distant, as though wrapped in soft seaweed and tucked gently away. Concerns lose their shape. Worries dissolve into the gentle hum of the deep. Down here, the ocean seems to remind you of something old and profound, that rest is not a luxury, but a natural part of existence. Even the greatest ships, the strongest storms, the fiercest waves eventually find stillness, surrendering to the calm beneath. In this peaceful descent, you become aware of something new, a feeling that the ocean is not empty but filled with presence. Not crowded, not busy, but alive with quiet watchers, creatures who move with the confidence of beings who have never known haste. The school of fish glides past you, their bodies shimmering like a trail of small lanterns. They move in perfect unison, turning all at once, not out of fear but out of instinctive harmony. The sight is mesmerizing, and you can't help but follow their path until they vanish into the darker blue. Far below, the soft outline of coral begins to appear on the sandy floor. Not colorful, as it is near the surface, but muted, softened by depth. The structures curl and branch like ancient trees turned to stone, each one shaped over decades by the slow, patient hand of the sea. Tiny shapes slip in and out of the coralless embrace, small creatures wrapped in the same softness as everything else here. Nothing rushes, nothing startles. Everything simply exists, and through it all, the ocean continues to cradle you. The deeper you drift, the more you sense the weight of time around you. Not in a heavy way, more like the sensation you feel when entering a quiet old library where countless stories rest in perfect silence. The water carries traces of lost vessels, forgotten maps, unanswered questions, and ancient journeys. All of these things float here, suspended, gentle, unwilling to disturb the calm. You begin to sense landmarks, faint but growing clearer with each gentle kick of your feet. Shapes that do not belong to coral or rock. Forms too straight, too intentional, but they do not dominate the landscape, they blend into it, softened by years of peaceful slumber. You drift closer, letting the ocean carry you like a slow-moving breeze. As you approach the first of these shapes, a subtle hum forms in the water around you. Not a sound, not exactly, more like an echo of what the ship once was. A memory, a presence. The water thickens with history as you near it, and yet, remarkably, the calm only deepens. Here is the first whisper of a story waiting for you. A tale shaped by waves and time, smoothed by silt and silence. But the ocean is careful, delicate even in how it reveals what lies ahead. It does not rush you toward the ship. It invites you, gently, to move closer at your own pace. Before the wreck comes fully into view, the water shifts slightly, almost like a curtain parting to let you step through. A faint current moves around you, guiding you not with force but with the assurance that the ocean knows where you are headed. And in this moment, as the ship's outline becomes clearer, you realize that the ocean is not just a setting, but a companion, a peaceful guide leading you towards stories long asleep. For now, you hover in the soft glow of this underwater twilight. Held in the ocean is a gentler embrace. Ahead lies a grand and silent relic, its story waiting patiently. You feel no urgency to reach it. There is only calm, only quiet expectation. The water hums softly around you. The currents slow to a near standstill, and with a long, deep breath, you prepare to drift forward into the first of the ocean's whispered legends. Soon, you will meet a ship whose name still echoes across history, but here, in the calm of the deep, It rests in silence. The ocean guides you forward with a patience that feels almost human and hurried, uninsistent, simply present. Its currents slow, as if sensing the significance of what lies ahead. The deep grows darker, not ominously, but like a velvet curtain being drawn back to reveal an ancient stage. And on that stage rests one of the most storied vessels in human history, the RMS Titanic. But in this place, far from the noise of documentaries, far from the drama of retellings, far from the surface world's fascination with tragedy, the Titanic is not a spectacle, not a heartbreak, not a cautionary tale. Here, she is a monument of stillness, a quiet cathedral of iron and memory, resting with dignity in the darkest cradle of the sea. As you drift closer, you first see only a soft out, long-sloping, soft by time. The shape rises gently from the ocean floor, not imposing, not proud, simply settled. The water around the ship thickens with a peaceful gravity, as though the deep itself recognizes the presence of something important and protects it with silence. The bow appears first, emerging through the haze of drifting silt. Once a gleaming spear that cut through the Atlantic's waves, it now lies in a gentle recline, half buried in sand like a great creature curled into sleep. Light from above, faint, delicate, glides across the metal and reflects in muted silver patches. Even after all these years, the Titanic catches what little light reaches her, as though still remembering what it felt like to shine. You move slowly, letting the ocean carry you along the bow's length. The grand scale becomes clearer, not overwhelming, but inspiring, like standing before an ancient mountain softened by centuries of snow. The railings are draped with curtains of rusticles, flowing downward like the trailing fabric of a forgotten gown. These mineral formations sway gently in the current, giving the ship a feeling of fragile life, as if breathing in slow, timeless intervals. There is no movement from the wreck itself, no creaking, no groaning. The Titanic lies completely still, and yet you can sense something within the silence and echo, perhaps, of the thousands who once walked her decks. Not their voices, not their footsteps, but the essence of a moment in history frozen beneath the sea. The ship holds it all deep within her hull, like a closed book resting peacefully on a shelf. You drift toward the great forecastle deck, imagining how it once felt beneath fresh sea air and bright daylight. Now, it is softened by silt and time. The wood that once lined these spaces has long dissolved into the sea, but the shapes remain, the curves, the outlines, the architectural traces. It feels less like a ruin and more like the bones of a memory the ocean has decided to keep. Closer still, you move above the open hatches and broken railings. The water here becomes thicker with history, as if the deep remembers not only the ship but the night the sea welcomed her into its eternal quiet. Yet nothing about this place feels tragic. The ocean has a way of smoothing sorrow, the way waves smooth stone slowly, patiently, thoroughly, until all that remains is a gentle, dignified calm. For a moment you imagine the Titanic not as a disaster, but as she is now. A sanctuary of quiet beneath miles of water, a monument to human ambition. Yes, Batosa, a monument to the sea's power to transform even the most dramatic story into stillness. You hover near a broken mast. Tiny fish weave in and out of its shadows, their shimmering bodies tracing paths through beams of soft blue light. They move with ease, as though the ship is simply part of their natural landscape. Nature has adopted the Titanic, folding it gently into its world, allowing life to flourish where once only machinery stood. Drifting farther, you approach the grand hull, a vast expanse of steel softened by decades of salt and silence. It feels less like a wreck and more like a sleeping giant, curled into the seabed. Sea anemones bloom in pale clusters across the surface. Small pockets of coral cling to rusted edges. The ocean has painted the ship in subtle blues and greens, replacing its former grandeur with a new kind of beauty. The beauty of peaceful surrender. You continue your slow glide, letting the water decide your direction. It subtly guides you downward along the starboard side, revealing glimpses into the ship's interior through collapsed walls and open expanses. Corridors once filled with movement now sit in quiet darkness, like the hallways of a grand estate long left to rest. Yet even in the shadows, there is no sense of fear, only reverence. At one opening, you pause, peering gently into what was once a stateroom. The floor has caved inward, scattered beams lying like fallen branches in a forgotten forest. But the remnants of elegance still linger, a curve of iron that once supported a staircase railing, a faint archway softened by the sea. The silence here feels sacred. You move on, drifting toward the grand bow staircaser where it once stood. Now, it is a wide, open space, stripped bare by time. But in your mind's eye, you can still imagine the sweeping descent, the polished wood, the sound of formal shoes on carpet, the glint of chandeliers. The sea has taken these details, but it has not erased them. It has simply quieted them. They live here as soft impressions, like faded dreams. The Titanic's grandeur, even in rest, remains unmistakable, and as you explore its silent presence, a feeling settles over you, a profound understanding of the ocean's strange gift. It does not destroy stories. It changes them. It slows them down until they become part of a larger, quieter truth. The Titanic's story, here in the deep, is no longer about what happened in a single night. It is about endurance, stillness, memory wrapped in peace. You drift back, letting the ship's vast shape stretch out before you one last time. The bow, the decks, the rusted railings, each element softened by the deepest gentle hand. You realize that the ocean has given the Titanic something the world above rarely offers: rest. The water grows lighter ahead, pulling you toward the next gentle whisper waiting in the deep. The Titanic remains behind, not as a tragedy frozen in time, but as a serene monument kept in the ocean's eternal embrace. And so, with one more slow, soft breath, you drift onward into Chapter 4, where another legend waits patiently beneath the waves. As you drift away from the resting majesty of the Titanic, the ocean around you begins to shift in character. The deep Atlantic hush softens, and a new kind of calm begins to settle. It is quieter still, thicker, as if the water itself holds its breath out of respect for the story you are now approaching. Gradually, the vast ocean floor dissolves into a darker, cooler blue. The salt gives way to a faint sense of freshwater clarity, and though you are still drifting deep beneath the waves, the currents feel different, denser, less turbulent, as if shaped by the presence of enormous inland waters rather than endless seas. This is not the Atlantic now. This is the domain of the Great Lakes. And somewhere ahead of you lies the most whispered about ship ever claimed by these waters. The USS Edmund Fitzgerald, not a ship of ancient times. Not a vessel of myth, but a modern giant, strong, proud, and revered, whose fate has become a quiet, enduring question carried by the cold lakes of the north. But here, beneath the surface, all questions rest in silence, and all mysteries settle into peace. As you descend deeper, the water grows clearer still. It has a unique purity, almost glass-like, that belongs only to the Great Lakes. Particles drift more slowly here, suspended in the cold blue like tiny flakes of frozen time. The stillness is thicker, too older, quieter than the sea's sweeping rhythms. Before the ship comes into view, you feel it, a presence in the cold. A calm so profound it almost hums. Then, through the dim blue haze, a long, dark silhouette emerges. The Fitzgerald. She rests on the lakebed like a sleeping iron leviathan, her form split in two but her dignity intact. There is nothing frightening about her here. The lake has wrapped her in centuries' worth of quiet, softening even the sharpest edges of her story. You drift slowly toward the bow section. Even in the dimness, it rises from the ground with a kind of strength that time has not erased. The hull is massive, far larger than most people imagine. Its sheer size is calming in its own way, like standing beside a mountain softened by snowfall. For a moment you simply float there, taking in the presence of this vessel that once commanded the Great Lakes with power and grace. Closer now, you glide past the bow. Its steel plates, once gleaming with paint and purpose, are muted and mossed with the deep green touch of fresh water. The curves of the ship are softened by layers of silt and sediment. The cold has preserved everything with unusual tenderness. Not frozen, but gently paused. The anchors, still in place, rests like enormous forgotten artifacts, their heavy forms settled into the lake floor. The chains trail off into the silt like the strands of an old tapestry unraveled by time. Everything here feels still, patient, unbothered by the years. It is quiet, so quiet that even your slow breathing seems loud in comparison. You drift farther along the hull, noticing how the lake has preserved the smallest details. Rivets still protrude along the surface like tiny iron constellations. The name, though long eroded, leaves behind a faint impression, as if the water remembers the letters even when the metal forgets. This place does not feel like a grave. It feels like a resting ground. A sanctuary. The water here is colder, but the cold is not harsh. It is calming, soothing, almost comforting, like a cool cloth placed gently on a tired brow. The lake cradles the Fitzgerald with a tenderness you wouldn't expect from something so vast. As you float near the wheelhouse, you sense the life that once filled these rooms, not in the form of ghosts or echoes, but in the shape of memory. The water around the cabin carries a kind of still respect, as though aware of the hands that once steered this great ship across storms and sunsets, through calm days and starlit nights. Panels have collapsed inward. Windows that once framed endless horizons now open only to drifting silt. But even in ruin, the space feels peaceful. The lake does not disturb what remains. It simply holds it close. You pause here, letting your gaze settle on the empty windows of the wheelhouse. There is something beautiful about the view, not haunting, not eerie, just quiet. It is the quiet of a winter night, of frost settling on pine branches, of snow blanketing a sleeping world. The Great Lakes have their own kind of silence, and it settles on the Fitzgerald like a soft white coat, moving gently on. You drift toward the break where the vessel split. The sand lifts slightly with every subtle shift in the water, drifting upward like slow-motion snow. The silence deepens here, not heavier, but more profound, like entering the center of a cathedral. Even in this fractured form, the Fitzgerald feels whole, not physically, but in presence. The bow and stern, separated by distance, still seem connected by the vast quiet in between them. You continue toward the stern section. It rests deeper, more ahead. The water thicker and colder. The propellers loom large, massive, still perfectly preserved by the icy dark. Their size is breathtaking. The metal blades frozen mid-turn, as though waiting patiently for a command that will never come. But there is no sadness in there, stillness, only tranquility. Resting near them, you feel the weight of time ease further. The lake's deep cold brings with it a clarity that goes beyond vision, a clarity of mind, of breath, of presence. You inhale slowly, feeling the calm seep deeper into your chest. The lake seems to breathe with you, its waters rising and falling in perfect sync. Here, beneath hundreds of feet of fresh water, the world above feels impossibly far away. Deadlines, noise, motion, they all dissolve, sinking gently into the silt like forgotten pebbles. The Fitzgerald, giantess she was, rests now as lightly as a leaf on still water. You move back slightly, taking in the full silhouette of the stern. Pipes and beams, once filled with the heartbeat of engines, now lie quiet, softened by silt and shadow. Small fish weave through what were once corridors of steel, their movements slow and reverent. They treat these spaces as part of the natural world, a new reef in a freshwater kingdom. You feel the gentle tug of the current at your back. The lake is nudging you forward, as though saying farewell in the softest way. This is the Fitzgerald, that she truly is not a mystery, not a legend of loss, but a quiet monument of freshwater calm. The lake holds her with the same protective stillness. It offers its cliffs, its forests, its winter ice. Her story rests here in a hush, as vast as the Great Lakes themselves. As you drift upward, letting the silhouette fade into the blue below, you feel a deep sense of peace settle over you, on understanding that even the greatest questions eventually find rest. And the lake, with all its quiet power, seems to whisper that every story, no matter how large, can be softened by time. With one last gentle breath, you rise toward lighter waters, ready to journey onward to another resting place shaped not by fresh water, but by centuries of ancient seas. Ahead waits the next whisper from the deep holder, stranger, untouched by the mysteries of the ancient world. As you drift upward, out of the cool stillness of Lake Superior, the world around you begins to shift once more. The freshwater clarity softens, warming gently into something older, more salted, more steeped in the breath of ancient civilizations. Slowly, delicately, the lake loosens its grip, and the great oceans of the world welcome you back into their vast embrace. The water grows warmer, not hot, just comfortingly mild, like the touch of sun-warmed stone beneath your hand. A faint golden glow begins to filter through the blue depths, carrying with it the soft impression of distant shores. You sense that the water here is rich, not just in salt but in stories. Stories so old they seem woven into the very current. You are drifting into the Aegean Sea, where islands rise like ancient guardians from the sapphire surface, and where time itself seems content to linger. Beneath these gentle waves lies one of the most extraordinary shipwrecks ever discovered. Not grand because of its size, nor tragic because of its fate, but extraordinary because of what it carried. A window into the mind of an ancient world. The Antikythera shipwreck. As you descend deeper into this warm, ancient blue, the water around you becomes clearer than glass. Here, the sea is not thick with silt or shadows. Instead, sunlight reaches astonishing depths, dancing in soft ripples that glide across rocks and sand in shimmering patterns. The water feels almost alive with memory, like a storyteller, eager to share a tale kept quiet for 2,000 years. You drift slowly, comfortably, letting the ocean guide your descent. The seafloor emerges below you, pale and sandy, scattered with stones that resemble pieces of broken history. Fragments of ancient ceramic jars lie gently on their sides. Their handles, now worn smooth by time, curl like the arms of sleeping statues. Some rest half buried in sand, as though tucking themselves in for centuries of quiet slumber. As you glide over them, you feel no urge to hurry. Everything here invites slowness. The Aegean has always been a patient keeper of stories. The deeper you go, the more objects appear scattered but serene. Bronze nails softened by tarnish. Pieces of statues worn marble white, a faint glimmer of gold dust drifting along the floor, caught in a lazy current. These are not treasures in the dramatic sense. They are simply memories returning to the surface of time, and then rising through the water like the silhouette of an ancient dream. You see it, the remains of the Antikythera shipwreck. The timbered ribs of the vessel no longer stand tall. They lie stretched across the sand like the quiet bones of a long-rested giant. The wood has mostly dissolved into the ocean, leaving behind only faint traces. But the shape remains clear, a ship that once sailed proudly between the islands, carrying wonders from one world to another. You drift down closer. The sand shifts slightly beneath you in soft plumes, but the wreck remains undisturbed. It has been sleeping here for over 20 centuries, and the ocean holds it with a gentle, unbreakable calm. Pieces of ancient cargo lie scattered around the hull. Some are stone-heavy statues of gods and heroes, their expressions softened by water and time. Others are bronze shields, fragments of armor, pieces of decorative art. Their surfaces glow faintly, touched by the warm light filtering through the clear water. You hover before a statue's heat, a marble face half buried in sand. Its features are smooth, serene, eyes closed as if in eternal rest. The currents slip gently over its surface, making it look almost alive. You sense no sadness here, only peace. The ancient world may have vanished, but its echoes rest here in perfect quiet. Nearby lies something smaller, less immediately striking but infinitely more extraordinary. A cluster of corroded bronze gears, fragments of what once formed a device so complex that modern historians stared in disbelief when it was first discovered. The Antikythera mechanism. You approach the remains gently. The bronze is encrusted with ocean growth, its gears fused by centuries underwater. But even in this transformed state, it radiates an unmistakable presence. It looks humble, hoosed, a broken green-tinged lump of metal, but It carries within it the ingenuity of a civilization far more advanced than history once imagined. The mechanism was a clockwork map of the heavens, crafted with astonishing precision, a device that tracked the movements of the sun and moon, predicted eclipses, mapped the stars, and perhaps even guided sailors as they navigated the ancient Mediterranean. You hover before it in quiet awe. The ocean cradles it, as though aware of the treasure it holds. Tiny fish slip in and out of the hollow spaces between the fused gears, treating it as part of their underwater home. They glide through calmly, unbothered by the age or significance of the object. In their presence, the mechanism seems less like an artifact and more like a natural part of the sea floor, another stone in the tapestry of time. As you watch, the faintest glint catches your azure shimmer reflecting off one of the bronze plates. It looks almost like the flicker of a distant star, as though the mechanism remembers the skies it once mapped. The shimmer fades, then returns, steady and soft, like a heartbeat of ancient knowledge. Here, in the deep, the Antikythera mechanism is not a relic or puzzle. It is a quiet dream of the ancient world, one the ocean has preserved with remarkable gentleness. You drift slowly around the wreck, taking in more of its scattered treasures. A carved marble hand, fingers curled like a sleeping child's. The base of a bronze statue, its inscriptions worn into soft grooves. Fragments of amphorae, decorated with faded patterns of vines and olives. Each piece lies exactly where the sea placed it, the result of centuries of steady, patient settling. The water grows warmer still as you move above the site. Light blankets, everything in soft gold, giving the wreck a dreamlike glow. You feel your breath slow, your thoughts drift, your body relax even deeper into the calm of the ocean. This is not just a wreck, it is a time capsule one. The sea is guarded tenderly for millennia. The Aegean wraps around you like the memory of an ancient lullaby. You imagine the ship in its final days laden with wonders from across the Greco-Roman world, gleaming with artistry and knowledge, sailing between sunlit islands, not knowing that its journey would end here, not knowing that the sea would hold its secrets for 2,000 years, waiting for the quiet moment when they would be gently rediscovered. And as you float above the remains, you realize something profound. The ocean is not only a keeper of stories, it is a keeper of time. It preserves moments not in pages or photographs, but in sand and silence. And it has preserved this one with extraordinary care. You let one more long breath rise and fall in your chest. The Aegean Sea glimmers softly around you. The mechanism rests, below still, serene, eternal. Slowly, the faint current gathers at your back, urging you onward. The ancient wreck begins to fade behind you, returning to its quiet sleep beneath a gentle gold-blue light. Ahead lies a very different kind of story, one shaped not by ancient trade or forgotten technology, but by the remains of wartime giants resting far across the world. As you drift away from the warm, ancient glow of the Aegean, the sea around you begins to shift once more. The water's warmth cools, and the soft gold light melts into deeper blues. The scent of ancient stone and forgotten marble fades into something new, something vast and distinctly tropical. You feel the currents changing, not rushing, not pulling, but widening, broadening, as though the ocean is opening into an expansive, calm world all its own. You are approaching Chuuk Lagoon, a place where history rests not in fragments or scattered treasures, but in entire worlds lying peacefully beneath the surface. Here, beneath the clear, turquoise water of Micronesia, dozens of ships massive, towering, once filled with thunder and purpose have settled into eternal sleep, and the ocean has transformed every one of them. Not into ruins, not into ghosts, but into gardens of life underwater, sanctuaries where silence blossoms in vivid color. As you drift downward, the tropical waters hug your body with gentle warmth. The clarity is astonishing. Sunlight penetrates deep into the blue, illuminating swaying corals, ribbons of drifting sand, and fish that shimmer like sequins in a slow-moving dance. The water here carries a unique calm, not the heavy quiet of deep oceans, but a soft, almost tender stillness. The lagoon is sheltered by a ring of islands, and their embrace gives the water an almost lake-like tranquility, as if protecting the wrecks within like precious stories kept in a hidden room. The first shapes appear beneath you as faint, dark outlines long and massive, like shadows cast by giants lying beneath the surface. As you drift closer, details form slowly out of the light. Towering masts, rusted turrets, holes covered in delicate curtains of coral. You are descending onto one of the largest underwater graveyards in the world. But what you feel is not fear or sadness. It is wonder and peace. The first ship rises into view, resting on its side like a great steel whale. Its hull is draped in coral that blooms in reds, pinks, purples, and bright gold. Large, soft corals sway from the deck like underwater flags. Schools of vibrant fish weave in and out of open hatches, undisturbed by your presence. This ship once roared with engines, weapons, and crew. Now, it breathes with the slow rhythm of the sea. You drift alongside its length, moving so slowly that the fish barely notice you. A pair of butterfly fish glide past, tracing arcs in the water like strokes of paint. Tiny bubbles rise from crevices in the deck, catching sunlight as they dance upward toward the shimmering surface. You turn toward the bow. It is covered in brilliant coral fans that open like pages of a glowing book. Their edges wave gently with each passing current, as though greeting you, inviting you deeper into the world they've created atop steel once meant for war. The bow gun, once pointed toward battles long ended, is now wrapped in thick growths of coral, softening it into something that resembles a large branch, an underwater tree bending toward the sand. Small fish swim around it as though it has always belonged here, as if this weapon was always meant to become part of their reef. Nothing about this place feels harsh. Everything feels reclaimed by peace. You drift deeper toward the cargo holds. Inside, sunlight filters through broken openings, creating a cathedral-like glow. The water inside is still, glowing with streaks of green and blue. Old crates lie in gentle disarray, their edges softened by time. Their contents once tools, equipment, supplies are now covered in coral dust, sea fans, and slow-moving marine life. You pause at the entrance, feeling as though you are standing at the doorway to a long-forgotten temple. The water seems to hum with age, not a sound, but a sensation. Like stepping into a space where history and nature are embracing each other softly. You move on. As you drift upward and over the ship's deck, the lagoon's gentle current carries you to another nearby ship, another giant resting in the sand. This one sits upright, its deck perfectly visible from above. Coral formations rise from its surfaces like miniature forests. Branching corals form wide canopies. Delicate ones resemble lace spread out across metal beams. You glide along the ship's side, feeling the calm radiating from every part of it. This was once a vessel of conflict, but now it hums with life. The ocean has erased its violence and left only tranquility. A sea turtle swims into view, moving with slow, deliberate strokes. It circles the ship, then drifts past you with an almost regal grace. Its presence adds to the stillness of the moment, a soft reassurance that the lagoon has become a sanctuary for all creatures, big and small. You follow the turtle for a moment before drifting toward the stern. Here, the ship's propellers sit half buried in sand. Bladis, once spinning with strength and precision, now serve as surfaces for coral gardens. Anemones sway from their edges, and a small school of fish has made a home within the hollow of one blade. Everything here speaks softly. Everything here rests gently. You let yourself drift upward, letting the scene stretch out beneath you. Ship after ship lies scattered across the lagoon, floored over 40 wrecks. Some are large freighters, others are warships, others small aircraft and vehicles preserved beneath the water. All are softened by coral, fish, and the quiet of decades. This lagoon once knew fierce battles, but the ocean has a way of healing, of reclaiming, of transforming. What was once destruction has become a haven, an underwater world of breathtaking beauty. The sunlight continues to illuminate the scene below, casting slow waves of gold across the steel decks. You watch as the water carries tiny particles of sand upward in swirling spirals. They look like drifting snowflakes, falling upward instead of down, as if gravity behaves differently in this quiet corner of the world. A gentle current brushes against your baka. Soft reminder that your journey continues. You follow it, drifting away from the ship. As you move, the coral colors blur into a watercolor wash beneath you. The giant forms shrink into gentle shadows on the pale lagoon floor. Your eyes slowly toward the surface light, feeling the warmth increase around you. Behind, Chuuk Lagoon fades like a beautiful dream, still vivid, still alive, but growing softer as the water carries you onward. You carry with you the feeling that even the fiercest stories can be transformed by time. That peace can grow in places once shaped by conflict. That the ocean, in all its vastness, has an extraordinary ability to soften the edges of history. As the lagoon disappears into the deep blue below, you sense new waters ahead, waters that hold a different kind of memory. Not tropical, not ancient, but solemn, deeply sacred, and touched by the enduring quiet of remembrance. The warm clarity of Chuuk Lagoon begins to fade behind you like a soft watercolor, its colors dissolving into drifting blues. As you drift onward, the temperature of the water cools slightly, not cold enough to startle you, but enough to remind you that you are entering a place shaped by a different kind of memory, one held with solemn care. The ocean becomes still once more, its currents narrowing into smooth, deliberate flows. The water here feels deeper, older, as though weighed with quiet reverence. It is not heavy, only calm in a more serious way. A respectful stillness settles into the waves. This is Pearl Harbor, a place where history is not whispered through artifacts or scattered remains, but through the deep, unwavering silence that holds the stories of those who rest here. And beneath these waters lies one of the most poignant, peaceful sights in the underwater world, the USS Arizona. You drift slowly downward, the sun above you casting long, drowsy shafts of light that ripple across the water. The shallowness of the harbor is comforting. The brightness filters through gently, illuminating the descent with a warm glow, as if the light itself is softened out of respect. As you move deeper, the outline of a massive shape appears beneath you, a dark, broad form resting quietly beneath the gentle pressure of the sea. It does not loom or rise sharply. It simply rests, as though the earth and water have shaped a cradle around it. The USS Arizona. Her presence in the water is unmistakable, not because of grandeur, but because of the utter stillness she carries. Unlike the coral-draped giants of Chuuk Lagoon, the Arizona is not adorned with vibrant life. She lies here with a solemn dignity, preserved by time, protected by the harbor, and embraced by the quiet. Even before you approach, you feel it, the reverence. The ocean's currents are delicate here, almost cautious, as though unwilling to disturb the ship. The water moves differently, gently weaving around the wreck, like hands cupping a fragile memory. You descend closer. The hull, once armored with steel and strength, now rests, partially buried beneath layers of silt. Rust has spread across its surface in faded streaks, but even this looks gentle, like the slow aging of something once powerful and now at peace. The deck is broken in places, collapsed inward with the passage of time, but the shapes remain recognizable: gun turrets, casings, beams, and railings, softened by decades of underwater rest. The ship's silhouette is unmistakable, its identity preserved not through detail but through essence. Everything here feels hushed. You drift along the starboard side, small pockets of marine life, nestling crevices, delicate coral heads, tiny fish, patches of sea moss. But the life here grows quietly, with none of the flamboyant color of tropical reefs. It feels as though nature understands the solemnity of this place and chooses to express itself through soft greens, magenta browns, faint blue sudal, respectful tones. The light from above shimmers across the surface of the water, falling onto the ship in a slow, golden dance. It seems to bless the wreck, warming it gently even from a distance. You can almost imagine that the sun itself is keeping watch, just as it has every day since that morning long ago. You drift toward the central portion of the ship. The wreck's most distinctive feature comes into view: the remains of the forward magazines and the collapsed midsection. These scars of history are softened underwater, rounded by silt and illuminated by the dappled sunlight drifting through the waves. Nothing feels violent. Time has reshaped everything into calmness. Slowly, you glide above the hull, your body weightless, above a vessel that once carried thousands of lives, hopes, and routines. The sense of presence is unmistakable. You do not feel fear or unease, only peace, and a profound respect that settles gently over your chest like a warm, heavy blanket. You near the area where the memorial above the surface stands. The structure's soft white silhouette casts long, pale reflections through the water, drifting down in steady waves of light. These reflections glide across the Arizona's hull like slow-moving lanterns. And then, as you hover still, something delicate catches your eye, moving upward in slow, shimmering ribbons. Tiny streams of oil. The Arizona still releases small droplets of oil after all these decades, known by those who tend to this place as the tears of the Arizona. The droplets rise in perfect stillness, climbing toward the surface with a grace that feels almost sacred. Each droplet elongates, stretches, and becomes a thin streak of iridescent color, catching sunlight before slipping quietly into air above. It is unexpectedly beautiful. You watch as one droplet rises, then another, then a third, each moving with the serenity of incense smoke in a quiet temple. These gentle plumes form an underwater bridge between the ship and the world above, connecting both realms in a way that feels deeply poignant. You pause, letting the moment settle. Everything down here feels suspended in time. Resting. Remembered. The water around you seems to thicken with the weight of memory, not heavy, but warm, like a collective embrace from the past. It is not sadness that fills the space. It is reverence, the kind of reverence that hushes even the currents. You drift gently toward one of the gun turrets. Its massive shape lies partially buried, softened by fish weave around its edges, moving with slow, deliberate grazes if they too understand the need for softness here. A sea turtle appears in the corner of your vision. It swims quietly past, its flippers moving like slow, meditative strokes. It glides over the Arizona without hesitation, as though offering silent company. Its presence is soothing, timeless, grounding. You follow the turtle for a moment, letting your body float in its wake. It leads you toward the stern, where the hull slopes gently downward. Here, time has taken more of the structure, leaving behind only the broad outline of the ship's resting place. But even in dissolution, the Arizona maintains her dignity. The currents shift slightly, wrapping around you in soft spirals. They feel comforting, like the gentle touch of hands guiding you onward. The water seems to whisper not words, but a feeling, a message of peace, rest, remembrance. You rise slowly above the ship, giving yourself one last long, quiet look at the Arizona as the light from above ripples across her hull. The oil droplets continue their slow ascent, shimmering with colors that seem borrowed from a dream. The wreck fades gently beneath you, sinking back into its silent sleep. And you carry with you the sense that some places are held not by history alone, but by memory, reverence, and the quiet acceptance of time. As the water brightens around you, the currents shift, once again inviting you to follow them toward the next story waiting beneath the waves. A story forged not of tropical beauty or solemn remembrance, but of towering steel giants lying in the northern waters, resting in a world shaped by cold, shadow, and quiet, deliberate peace. The warm waters of Pearl Harbor soften and fade as you drift ever onward, carried by a current that feels both ancient and deliberate. The sea around you grows cooler once more, and the light changes gradually from bright gold to pale silver, then into muted blue-gray. The ocean seems to exhale, settling into a deeper calm. You've entered northern waters now, waters shaped by wind, stone, and centuries of maritime history. Waters that carry the quiet weight of great ships and the distant echo of past empires. Ahead lies a place both solemn and serene, a vast sheltered harbor where giants came to rest. Scapa Flow, in the Orkney Islands of Scotland, a place where some of the world's largest warships lie quietly beneath the surface, not as reminders of conflict, but as monuments to the sea's power to transform even the mightiest machines into peaceful sleepers. As you drift downward through the cool water, the first thing you notice is the clarity. It is not tropical clear, but sharp, crisp, like the air of a winter morning. The currents here feel slower, denser, moving with intention. The sea around you smells colder. Too not literally, but in the way its stillness touches your senses. The sky above, felt only through the shifting light filtering down, is a softer, more silvery tone. The world here feels older, wiser, closer to the whispered edge of the North Atlantic. Gradually, shapes begin to emerge on the sea floor. Not small wrecks, not scattered debris, but massive shadows long, towering, unmistakably powerful. The first appears beneath you like the outline of a sleeping mountain. A German battleship, scuttled more than a century ago during the final days of World War I, one of many intentionally sunk at Scapa Flow by their own crews to keep the ships out of enemy hands. They did not descend with violence. They sank with solemn finality, and the ocean has held them in gentle quiet ever since. You drift closer to the dark form below. As the details sharpen, the enormous hull of a warship stretches out beneath you like the spine of a steel titan. Barnacles trace delicate patterns along its sides. Kelp sways in soft, amber-green ribbons, draped over the metal like blankets, carefully placed by time. The ship is tilted on its side, but the tilt does not feel chaotic. It feels restful, like a giant lying down to sleep. As you float near the bow, the sheer scale becomes clear. This ship was enormous, a floating fortress once designed for power, now transformed by decades of stillness. The water here is colder, but not unkind. It wraps around you gently, encouraging slowness. The kelp forests that grow along the wreck move with the rhythm of a slow, deep breath. They sway back and forth, brushing lightly across metal and stone, creating a soothing, whispering sound you can almost feel rather than hear. You drift over the deck now, a garden of seaweed, small fish, and soft corals. The hatches are open gaps. The guns are draped in kelp. The railings have softened under layers of life. A group of seals glides past you in the dim water, moving with elegant, playful grace despite the solemn surroundings. They twist and spiral around the shadowy forms of the ships, as comfortable here as birds among ancient trees. Their presence brings warmth to the cold environment, reminding you that even in the most powerful resting places, life flourishes gently. You follow the seals for a moment, watching as they slip in and out of a large gun turret. The turret, once massive and imposing, now looks almost like part of a coastal cliff, weathered, softened, naturally absorbed into the underwater landscape. A kelp strand twirls from its end, catching the light as it sways. Drifting deeper, you glide beside the ship's hull. Portholes stare out like quiet eyes. Steel plates overlap like the ribs of a sleeping creature. The silence is profound, but peaceful, almost meditative. You descend toward the sea floor, where parts of the ship rest half buried in soft sediment. The sand here is a muted gray, cool and fine, stirred only by slow-moving fish or the sweep of a seal's flipper. You pause for a moment, letting the currents settle around you. The hull stretches overhead, massive and unyielding, yet softened by the passage of time. It is humbling, but in a comforting way, like standing in a vast hall carved by nature. Slowly, you drift away from the first ship and toward another silhouette in the distance. Another scuttled vessel, another sleeping giant. Each one lies at a different angle, shaped by the moment it settled into the sea floor. Yet all share the same profound tranquility. The ocean has wrapped them in a collective stillness, binding them together in a kind of underwater cathedral. As you glide over the next ship, you notice the way light diffuses here, soft silver rays pouring over the hull like moonlight on stone. The entire wreck glows faintly, not with brightness, but with a gentle, ethereal sheen. The water is clear enough that you can see the outline from bow to stern in a single sweeping view. This ship's deck is covered in kelp that grows like long, amber curtains, moving in slow waves. It feels almost like watching the breath of the ocean itself. Small crabs scuttle along handrails, worn smooth with age. Starfish cling to the underside of beams. Sea snails trace slow, spiraling paths along metal, once polished with military precision. Everything here moves slowly. Everything here grows gently. Everything here exists peacefully. You drift over the central mass now, a vertical pillar of marine life stretching upward into the cool glow of the water. Fish gather around it in swirling schools, forming shimmering halos that drift outward like rings from a dropped stone. The mast, once a symbol of communication and command, has become a kind of underwater tree alive with quiet activity, rooted in stillness. The currents guide you to the stern, where the heavy propellers rest half-sunk in silt. Their blades, now enormous, bronze-colored sculptures, are veiled in kelp ribbons. The metal surfaces have grown so textured with marine life that they resemble ancient carvings more than machinery. You pause here, taking in the surreal beauty, a blend of human engineering and natural artistry, merged by time into something serene. As you hover above the wreck, you realize that Scapa Flow is not a graveyard. It is a sanctuary, a resting ground, a place where power has become peace. You rise slowly, letting the fading silhouette of the ship sink into the blue-gray depths below. The seals reappear briefly, circling each other playfully before disappearing into the drifting forests of kelp. The water grows lighter as you ascend, touched by the pale sky above. The entire harbor feels like a vast cradle, holding the memories of giants, allowing them to sleep undisturbed beneath layers of life and time. You drift onward, the current gentle and steady. The giants fade behind you, returning to their quiet slumber. Ahead, new depths await. Depths shaped not by war or ancient trade, but by the quiet work of those who seek to understand the stories the ocean keeps hidden. As the resting giants of Scapa Flow fade into the dim blue distance, the ocean around you shifts once again. The cold northern water softens. The light grows steadier, and the currents, which had whispered slowly through forests of kelp, begin to smooth themselves into gentle, unbroken streams. There is a sense of purpose here. Not urgency, never. Urgency in the deep, but intention, direction, as though the water knows where it is guiding you and why. You are drifting now toward the quiet world of underwater discovery, a realm where history is not only preserved by the ocean, but patiently uncovered by those who move through it with the same softness and respect that you have been guided by on your journey. For the ocean does not reveal its secrets loudly. It reveals them slowly, carefully, to those who know how to listen. The water around you bright, and soon faint beams of light begin to shimmer and cross through the depths, like wandering lanterns cutting gentle paths through the blue. These beams flicker across the seafloor, illuminating rocks, coral heads, and tiny drifting specks of plankton with precise, deliberate movements. These are not natural beams. These are lights carried by divers. You drift closer, watching as a pair of silhouettes glide downward. Their bodies move slowly, with an ease born of deep training and deep respect. Each exhale releases a long, soft stream of bubbles that spirals upward like silver threads. They do not disturb the water. They do not stir sand or startle the fish. Their presence is almost as gentle as yours, quiet, observant, reverent. They are underwater archaeologists. You follow them at a careful, floating distance, watching the graceful way they move. Their fins sweep in slow arcs. Their hands drift lightly at their sides. Their lights illuminate only what needs to be seen, never overwhelming the darkness, never intruding with harsh brightness. Their movements remind you of caretakers walking through an ancient library, not removing anything, not rearranging, just reading the stories time has written into the shadows. Below them, the seafloor shifts from featureless sand into something more intriguing. Small shapes, apparengular, metallic, geometric. The divers hover above these fragments, shining their soft beams onto scattered pieces of a forgotten wreck. Old pottery, brass fittings, fragments of a broken hull, all lying exactly where the ocean placed them. The divers do not touch. They only observe, mapping, not claiming. One diver lifts a tablet sealed in a waterproof case. With gloved fingers, they sketch the outline of a beam on the seafloor. They trace its position precisely, noting its angle, its depth, the direction it points. Each detail is recorded with care, because in archaeology, even the most ordinary shapes can whisper extraordinary truths. The other diver releases a small, submersible beacon barely larger than a handheld lantern. It glows with a gentle blue light, settling near the wreck like a watchful firefly. These beacons form a constellation underwater, guiding the diver's path without disturbing the sight. You glide closer. A school of small fish passeth through the diver's lights, casting intricate shadows on the sand. Their bodies glimmer like floating leaves in a sunlit pond. Then, from behind the divers, a soft mechanical hum begins to resonate in the water. A remotely operated vehicle en route. It moves with the slow precision of a creature designed for the deep. Its circular lights glow with soft white halos. Its arms delicate, mechanical limbs remain, folded peacefully, like hands clasped in contemplation. It does not rush, does not bump, does not disturb. It hovers, studies, breathes with the water. Then its lights sweep over a half-buried ceramic jar. The surface is coated with fine sediment. The ROV's arm extends not to touch, but to brush the sand away with a tool softer than a feather. The particles rise in swirling patterns, drifting lazily through the light beams. The jar's pattern appears intricate lines, forming a faded design, a memory resurfacing. The divers watch quietly. The ocean watches too. Nothing in this place hurries. Nothing disrupts the deep is a steady calm. You drift further around the ROV, noticing how its cameras rotate with slow, fluid motions. It captures images, scans the surrounding area, and projects gentle light over objects that have not felt touch or sunlight in perhaps hundreds or thousands of years. These tools, these divers, these careful movements, they form a bridge between worlds, between present and past, between the surface and the silent deep. And everything is done with extraordinary gentleness. The ocean seems to approve. You continue drifting beside the divers as they move along the wreck. They pause over a wooden beam, preserved by the cold and pressure of depth. The beam is brittle, worn, but still recognizable as part of a ship's skeleton. One diver measures it carefully, while the other glides a few feet away, releasing a small drone that spins in slow circles, scanning the area with sonar waves. These sonar pulses do not shout through the water. They whisper soft, even rhythmic. Each pulse spreads outward like a ripple across a pond, touching the wreck with the delicacy of fingertips. The returning echoes paint a picture, a map not with sharp lines, but with gentle curves and soft gradients. A story slowly taking shape. Above you, a long cable descends from the surface, connecting the ROV to a vessel far above. That ship floating quietly on the calm sea is a research vessel, not filled with hurried crew or loud equipment, but with scientists who watch and listen, who wait patiently for each new piece of data, who respect the deep's pace. You drift upward briefly, just enough to glimpse the faint shadow of that vessel through the shifting blue. It lies still like a guardian hovering over its explorers. Its engines are silent. Its hull barely moves on the gentle swell. Everything about it reflects a profound respect for the world beneath. You sink slowly back down toward the divers. Their work is almost meditative. Measure, record, observe, move gently onward. They uncover nothing fully. They recover nothing hastily. Underwater archaeology is not extraction. It is a conversation with the past, a slow, humble, quiet conversation. And the ocean responds not with words, but with its willingness to reveal what it once hid when approached with care. You remain with the divers for some time, drifting beside them in the dusky light as they continue mapping the wreck. Their slow progress feels like a shared dream, one, shaped by patience, curiosity, and reverence. Eventually, the divers begin to ascend, their bubbles rising in long silver trails. The ROV pulls back. The small blue beacons dim one by one. The wreck returns to its natural state, quiet, unbothered. Resting once again, the ocean folds its calm back around the site, its secrets preserved, but not concealed, its memories drifting gently in the currents like threads of an ancient tapestry. You rise with the divers, though at your own peaceful pace. The blue grows brighter above. The dim wreck slowly fades behind you, sinking into its familiar rest. Ahead lies an even deeper region of water, a vast blue expanse waiting to wrap around you fully. A place not of discovery, but surrender. Not of stories being uncovered, but of stories finally coming to rest. As the divers and their equipment fade into the blue behind you, the water around you begins to settle into a deep, steady calm. The excitement of discovery softens, leaving behind a quiet sense of purpose. Ahead, the environment changes again. It becomes clearer, more open, and more controlled, as though shaped not only by nature, but by careful human observation. You are drifting now into the world where technology and the ocean meet. Not technology used loudly or forcefully, but the kind built to move gently, to study without disturbing, to learn without intruding. This is the quiet frontier of modern underwater exploration. The water grows brighter as you approach a region where survey vessels operate above. You don't see them directly, not yet, but you sense their presence in the faint, orderly patterns of light passing downward. These are not the random, shifting waves you've followed before. They are steady, uniform, and intentional. You drift downward until you see them. Smooth fields of the seafloor stretching out like a dim landscape, but this landscape isn't untouched. Thin lines run across it, cleaned parallel paths cut by scanning equipment. These lines aren't physical marks. They are the result of sonar sweeps, acoustic mapping, and remote imaging that have gently scanned the terrain. The technology doesn't disrupt the water. It moves through it the way a whisper moves through a quiet room. A soft pulse of sound travels outward, reaching across the seafloor. You feel it as a faint vibration, calm, regular, almost like a slow heartbeat. The pulse moves ahead, bounces off a rock, a fragment of wreckage, a slope of sand, then returns upward to the ship far above. Each pulse builds a picture, not a bright image, not a dramatic reveal, just a clear, accurate reflection of what lies below. You drift parallel to one of these scanned paths, following it like a quiet road. The lines curve gently around rock formations. They widen where the ocean floor drops. They narrow again where a wreck lies hidden beneath sediment. The pattern is subtle, not carved or drawn, simply the result of careful measurement. Above, faint shadows glide across the surface. Long, slow-moving silhouettes of vessels fitted with advanced tools. They are not fishing boats, not cargo ships. These are research and survey vessels. They move cautiously, maintaining steady speed, keeping engines slow to avoid disturbing the water. Inside, teams work in low-lit rooms filled with screens. No shouting, no reeing, just quiet attention. Their screens show pale outlines of the seafloor, gently revealed by sonar data. A ridge rises here. A depression dips there. An unexpected metal shape lies partially buried nearby. Each feature is catalogued calmly. Each detail is stored for later study. You drift beneath one of these vessels. The underside is smooth, quiet, barely vibrating. A cluster of equipment hangs beneath the towed arrays, sensors, and multi-beam sonar units. Their pulses move through the water in a slow, rhythmic sequence. Below them, the ocean responds without resistance. The seafloor begins to reveal itself in greater detail. A long shadow appears, the outline of a shipwreck, not raised or exposed, just resting beneath thin layers of sand. The sonar beam passes over it again. This time, the shape is clearer. The hull, T-deck line, the sloping bow buried deeper than the stern. Nothing is touched. Nothing is lifted. The wreck remains exactly where it has been for decades, maybe centuries only, now made visible through careful scanning. You drift closer. The details of the ship start to come into view beneath the sand. Faint metal edges, small openings, parts of the structure still intact. The ocean has preserved what time might have otherwise erased, and technology has revealed just enough to allow understanding without disturbing the sight. A small, autonomous underwater vehicle, a UV, moves into view. It travels without a tether. Its lights are dim, focused downward. It navigates slowly, taking photographs and measurements. The AUV glides as quietly as a fish. No abrupt motion, no kicking up silt, just steady, smooth movement. A camera inside the AUV captures high-resolution images, sharp but calm. The ocean floor appears on the screen. Sand, stone, bits of scattered metal, Researchers on the ship above study each frame, marking objects, identifying materials, and comparing changes over time. You drift beside the AUV, watching as it continues its steady path. Its sensors scan the wreck from different angles. Laser lines trace across the hull, measuring distances. Photogrammetry software later uses these measurements to build a 3D model accurate, detailed, and faithful to reality. These 3D models don't lift anything from the ocean. They don't change the wreck. They simply recreate it digitally, allowing the ship to remain undisturbed while sharing its story with the world. You followed the AUV until it rises gently toward the surface. It pauses, waiting for retrieval. Then a diver brings it aboard with slow, careful movements. The diver's motions are steady, almost routine, but respectful. The ocean has become a workplace, a laboratory, and a heritage site all at once. And everything is handled with calm precision. You drift forward again. Another type of technology appears ahead. A long, quiet glider. It looks like a smooth, winged capsule moving through the water with no propeller. Gliders don't use engines. They adjust their buoyancy, sinking and rising slowly while moving forward with minimal energy. They're almost silent. This glider carries instruments that measure temperature, salinity, oxygen levels, and currents. It isn't searching for wrecks. It is studying the environment that preserves them. The water here is cold enough, calm enough, oxygen poor enough to keep old wood intact and metal structures stable. Everything the glider records adds another piece to understanding where wrecks are and how they endure. You hover above its path, watching its slow descent. Then its slow rise again. Its movements are predictable, almost soothing like the gentle rocking of a boat at anchor. Farther ahead, another piece of equipment is at work. A magnet. It measures subtle changes in the Earth's magnetic field, revealing hidden metal objects beneath the sand. It doesn't touch anything. It simply senses what lies below. A slight shift in its readings forms the shadow of another wreck. A faint outline, a signal that history rests beneath the seafloor. One day, divers or ROVs may map it more closely, or perhaps they won't. Some wrecks are best left undisturbed, known, respected, and allowed to remain in the quiet the ocean has granted them. You'll drift upward gently as the survey vessel completes its pass. The light grows brighter, filling the water with a soft glow. The tools below retreat, one by one. The pulses of sonar grow quieter. The hum of technology fades. The ocean resumes its natural stillness. What remains is a sense of balance between discovery and preservation, between curiosity and respect, between human knowledge and the ocean's quiet authority. You rise toward the surface layer, letting the calm settle into you. The seafloor fades below. The research vessel becomes a faint silhouette overhead, and the last traces of scanning light disappear into the blue. Ahead waits the deepest calm of all. A place where the vastness of the ocean becomes a blanket of pure quiet. After leaving behind the world of survey vessels and underwater tools, the ocean around you becomes noticeably quieter. The steady pulses of sonar fade. The faint vibrations from research ships diminish until they disappear entirely. The water settles into a deeper, more natural rhythm, slow, even predictable. You are entering the open blue, the part of the ocean where everything feels wider, softer, and quieter. There are no more wrecks nearby, no beams of scanning light, no divers or ROVs moving through the water. Just the calm expanse stretching out in every direction. The light above begins to dim, not suddenly, but steadily. Like the approach of early evening, the water shifts from a bright blue to a deeper shade, gradually covering the colors around you. The descent into the deeper layers of the ocean is gentle. There is no pressure, no weight on your body, only a smooth transition from one level of quiet to the next. This part of the ocean is sometimes called the Blue Desert, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels peaceful, steady, consistent in a way few places on Earth can be. Down here, the world slows to a pace that encourages rest. The water is cooler, but not cold. It surrounds you evenly, as if creating a stable environment where nothing disrupts your calm. Every movement becomes softer. Your arms, your breath, even your thoughts begin to match the smooth rhythm of the water. You allow yourself to drift without effort. Above you, light trails from the surface dance in long streaks, moving with the swirl of the ocean. These shifts are subtle, like the slow movement of clouds on a quiet day. Below you, the deep fades into a soft gradient of blue and darkening shadow. There is no rush to go farther, no sense of urgency. Just room to float. For the first time on this journey, you are not approaching a particular site or waiting to uncover a specific story. You are simply moving through the ocean as it exists in its most natural form. The stillness here feels different than the stillness over wrecks. Those places carried weight history, memory, presence. Here, the stillness is neutral. It is simply the nature of the deep. A gentle current passes by, brushing along your arms. It isn't strong enough to push you, but you can sense its direction. It moves in long, continuous strands, like a soft breeze moving across an empty field. These currents travel for thousands of miles, shaping the planet's climate, feeding ecosystems, and balancing temperatures around the world, all while remaining almost invisible at the surface. The deeper you drift, the less tied you feel to the surface world. There are no landmarks, no sounds except the quiet movement of water. No distractions, just an environment that exists in its own rhythm. This simplicity is calming. There's nothing to interpret, nothing to solve. Only the slow drift and the sound of your own steady breathing. Occasionally, small shapes appear in the water around you, a scattering of plankton risers through the dim light, their bodies catching small flecks of brightness as they drift. These tiny organisms move with the current, not against it. Their pace is slow, steady, and peaceful, perfectly suited to this deep, quiet zone. A jellyfish floats nearby. Its belt pulses in gradual, even motions. Each movement pushes it forward just a little, sending it into another section of the blue. It moves as if it has all the time in the world. Its tentacles trail behind it in long, soft lines. They sway with its motion, resembling thin threads moving through a gentle breeze. There is nothing threatening about it. Down here, most creatures conserve energy, choosing slow, minimal actions over rapid movement. You watch the jellyfish drift away. Its glow fades into the distance, leaving behind a faint memory of motion. The water returns to stillness. Another organism appears. This one, a small, silver fish. It hangs near you, almost motionless, adjusting its fins only slightly to maintain its position. It seems completely comfortable in the open water. It doesn't swim away quickly. It just observes you for a moment, then turns and moves deeper into the blue with slow, natural strokes. Everything down here seems to move with intention and ease. Time feels different underwater. Minutes stretch without effort. Thoughts slow down. Your breathing becomes steady. You notice the pressure of the water around you, not heavy, not tense, but consistent. It feels like a blanket that wraps evenly around your entire body. The deeper you go, the more even the sensations become. You're drifting now at a depth where sunlight becomes thin. The colors shift into darker shades of blue. This transition isn't sudden. It's gradual, giving you all the time you need to adjust. The ocean does not rush anything here. Your eyes begin to pick out shapes in the darkness below, long, faint shadows that move gently, almost invisibly. These might be larger fish or drifting objects carried by currents. They stay at a distance, mobbing slowly, their motions softened by the thickening water. The water at this depth feels smoother than before. The sound is different too, less echo, more softness. It is the kind of quiet that helps the mind loosen its grip on the day. If you listen closely, there are faint vibrations in the water, barely noticeable. They might be distant whale calls, or the soft rumble of something far above. The ocean carries sound differently. It travels faster and farther, but in deeper zones, it becomes muted, soft by the density around you. You drift a little lower until the light above feels like a soft halo. It no longer reaches far, but it doesn't disappear completely. Even here, the ocean gives you enough visibility to feel safe, stable, and oriented. In this deep calm, the world feels reduced to only a few elements. The water, your breath, and the steady rhythm of drifting. It's easy to understand why many divers describe this environment as meditative. The ocean doesn't require your attention. It encourages it to rest. It doesn't pull you forward. It holds you where you are. This part of your journey is not about discovering a shipwreck or studying a historic object. It's about experiencing the deep ocean as its own form of rest, a place where everything slows down, where even the water seems to breathe in long, subtle cycles. A faint current touches your back, signaling a gentle shift in direction. Not a push, more of a suggestion. You follow it naturally, letting it guide your movement upward again. The water brightens as you rise. The deeper blues turn lighter. The soft halo above grows clearer. You're being carried toward a place where this journey will conclude not with discovery, but with reflection. A place where the ocean invites you to pause and simply rest in its vastness. As you rise slowly from the deeper layers of the ocean, the water begins to lighten around you. The dim blues gradually shift into softer, brighter tones, and the faint traces of sunlight stretch farther downward. You can feel the temperature change as well, a slight warmth returning to the currents. Not sudden, but steady and consistent. The ocean has carried you through places marked by history, memory, and quiet transformation. Now, it guides you toward the final part of your journey where the stories below settle into rest, and the calm of the deep blends into a comfortable stillness. You continue ascending, and the water moves more gently around you. The sensation is familiar by now. Soft pressure, slow currents, and the steady quiet that has followed you through every chapter of this journey. With each moment, the surface draws closer, though there is no rush. The ocean sets the pace, and you move with it effortlessly. As you drift, you look down one last time at the layers of blue beneath you. The depths stretch into a gradual fade of color, disappearing into dark calm. Somewhere down there lie the shipwrecks who visited the Titanic, the Edmund Fitzgerald, the ancient Antikythera ship, the resting giants of Chuuk Lagoon, the silent battlegrounds of Scapa Flow, and the USS Arizona. They are far out of sight now, but not out of mind. You'll carry the impression of each place with you. Their stillness, their quiet endurance, and the steady calm they offered. Above you, the water brightens further. You begin to see the surface as a moving mosaic of shimmering patterns. Sunlight glances across the waves, creating slow-moving reflections that ripple and shift. The transition feels less like leaving the deep and more like waking up from a long, restful moment of thought. You rise until you hover just below the surface. The sound here is different from the depths. Instead of muted silence, you hear a soft, muffled version of the world above, gentle wave motion, distant vibrations of the air pressing down, and the quiet movement of the sea itself. It is all softened by the water. You break the surface with a smooth motion, and the first full breath of open air feels warm and steady. The sky stretches overhead, a wide, calm expanse, with soft clouds drifting slowly across it. The horizon is clear, and the air carries the faint scent of salt. The ocean surface around you is flat and peaceful, with long, slow swells that rise and fall in an easy rhythm. These waves aren't loud. They don't crash or break. They simply move, carrying the calm of the deep upward, as though lifting it to the quiet world above. You float for a moment, letting your body rest in the water. Nothing pulls at you. Nothing demands your attention. The sea holds you steadily, the same way it held each place you visited. You begin to notice how the world feels different now. Softer, slower, more connected. The stories of the shipwrecks are no longer just locations or facts. They feel like part of the larger rhythm of the ocean, moments preserved by water, shaped by time, and soft by stillness. In their own way, each wreck revealed something about how history settles, how noise becomes quiet, how movement becomes rest. You let these thoughts drift naturally, without trying to hold on to them. The ocean has a way of loosening your grip on busy thoughts, letting them dissolve gradually, like grains of sand through your fingers. A long swell lifts you gently, then sets you down again. Your breathing matches its movement without effort. Slow rise, slow fall. The sky reflects in the water around you, creating patches of silver and pale blue that shift with every wave. It feels like floating in a quiet room filled with soft light. Nothing is sharp or overwhelming. Everything blends smoothly. In this moment, you understand something simple but comforting. The ocean does not keep its calm only in the depths. It brings that calm upward, where anyone can feel it. Even at the surface so close to the busy world above there is room for stillness. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sway of the water support you. It's easy to imagine the deep stories continuing, below unchanged, unhurried, resting just as they always have. And up here, you are part of that same calm, sharing in the quiet rhythm of the sea. You take a slow breath. In your mind you revisit each place not with detail or emotion, but with the same soft impression you felt while drifting through them. The Titanic, resting in dim, steady light. The Edmund Fitzgerald, preserved by the cold clarity of the Great Lakes. The Antikythera wreck, holding ancient knowledge with quiet patience. Chuuk Lagoon, where shipwrecks became reefs and shelters. The USS Arizona, watched over by the stillness of remembrance. Flow, where giants rest in long rows beneath northern waters. The archaeological sites, carefully uncovered by human hands moving gently in the deep. The open abyss, offering a calm that belongs only to the ocean's vastness. Each memory feels softened now, wrapped in the same easy rhythm of the surface waves. The sun sits a little lower in the sky, but its warmth continues to reach you. The ocean reflects soft highlights across its surface, a shifting pattern that could lull anyone toward rest. You float a little longer, letting this final chapter settle in your mind. The journey is nearly complete. When you take one more breath, it feels lighter. Your body feels comfortable, your thoughts slow, your senses calm. The ocean, in its quiet way, has guided you through stories that live beneath the waves, not as dramatic events, but as places of rest, as reminders that history is not only told through motion and action, it is also held in stillness. You turn gently onto your back, letting the water support you fully. The sky spreads out above, wide and peaceful. The air is soft. The movement of the sea beneath you is steady and predictable. This is where the journey ends, at a place where the deep ocean's calm meets the quiet of the open sky. Not dramatic, not loud, just simple, steady rest. You take one last look at the horizon, then close your eyes. The ocean continues its slow rise and fall, matching your breath. And as you settle into stillness, you carry with you the calm that has followed you from the very first descent into the blue. Everything is quiet now. Everything is at rest. And the ocean, with all its stories, continues to hold its peace, inviting you to rest with it. Thank you for joining this peaceful journey through the ocean's resting places. May the calm of these deep waters stay with you as you settle into sleep. The story ends here, but the relaxing music will continue so you can drift off naturally. Wishing you a restful night. From Go to Sleep Historian.